Protoceratopsids, scientifically known as Protoceratopsidae, were a family of small to medium-sized ceratopsian dinosaurs that lived between roughly 105 and 71 million years ago during the Cretaceous period. Most species were discovered in Mongolia and northern China, though a few controversial fossils have also been linked to Australia and South America. Unlike the giant horned ceratopsians that later appeared in North America, Protoceratopsids were smaller herbivores with strong beaks, compact bodies, and expanding neck frills adapted for dry desert environments. Protoceratopsidae shared a common ancestor with Leptoceratopsidae and later Ceratopsidae, but Protoceratopsids evolved as their own separate branch and were not direct members of the Leptoceratopsid lineage. In this video, we are talking only about the Protoceratopsids. Paleontologists recognize several valid members of the family, while others remain debated or highly uncertain. Today, we explore every known Protoceratopsid, explained simply and clearly from the oldest species to the youngest. Notoceratops. Notoceratops possibly lived between 86 and 83 million years ago during the Late Cretaceous in Argentina. It is considered one of the most dubious ceratopsian genera because the original fossil, mainly a partial jaw, was lost long ago. Without the specimen, paleontologists can only study old drawings and descriptions. Some researchers believe it may have been a primitive ceratopsian, while others argue it belonged to another ornithischian dinosaur entirely. If valid, Notoceratops would represent one of the few possible South American ceratopsians ever discovered. It was likely a small herbivore that fed on low vegetation in semi-arid environments. Graciliceratops. Graciliceratops lived between roughly 84 and 72 million years ago during the Late Cretaceous in Mongolia. It is considered one of the earliest valid Protoceratopsids and helps show how later horned dinosaurs evolved. The dinosaur measured around 1.5 meters long and had a lightweight body with a narrow skull and small frill. Compared to later Protoceratopsids, its anatomy remained fairly primitive, especially in the skull structure. Its sharp beak was likely used for clipping low vegetation in dry floodplain environments. Originally assigned to another genus, later studies revealed enough unique features for Graciliceratops to receive its own name. Its fossils are important because they show a transitional stage between primitive ceratopsians and more advanced Protoceratopsids. It likely lived alongside small theropods, mammals, and lizards within Mongolia's desert ecosystems. Bagaceratops. Bagaceratops lived between 75 and 71 million years ago during the Late Cretaceous in Mongolia and China. It was one of the most common small Protoceratopsids living in desert ecosystems filled with dunes and seasonal storms. The animal measured about 1 meter long and weighed roughly 20 kilograms. It had a compact skull with a deep beak and strong jaws suited for eating tough vegetation. Compared to Protoceratops, Bagaceratops possessed a shorter snout and smaller frill. Large numbers of fossils have been discovered, including juveniles and adults, helping paleontologists understand how Protoceratopsids changed during growth. Some debated genera may actually represent growth stages of Bagaceratops itself. It likely survived by feeding on hardy desert plants while avoiding predators such as Velociraptor and other small theropods. Breviceratops. Breviceratops lived between 75 and 71 million years ago during the Late Cretaceous in Mongolia. Its name means short-horned face, referring to its compact skull and reduced frill. The dinosaur measured roughly 1.5 meters long and likely weighed around 30 to 40 kilograms. It possessed a sturdy body with a broad beak, adapted for feeding on low vegetation. For many years, paleontologists debated whether Breviceratops was actually a juvenile form of Bagaceratops, because young ceratopsians often change dramatically during growth. More recent studies suggest it may possess enough unique skull features to remain valid, though the debate still continues. It lived in dry desert environments alongside Protoceratopsids, small theropods, mammals, and lizards. Bainoceratops. Bainoceratops lived between 75 and 71 million years ago during the Late Cretaceous in Mongolia. It is considered a debated Protoceratopsid because many paleontologists believe it may simply represent a synonym of Protoceratops. The genus is known from fragmentary skull remains showing slight differences in frill shape and facial proportions. Estimated body length suggests an herbivore around 1.5 to 2 meters long. Some researchers consider the anatomical differences too minor to justify a separate genus, while others argue it may represent a distinct species living alongside Protoceratops in Mongolia's desert ecosystems. Gobiceratops. Gobiceratops lived between 75 and 71 million years ago during the Late Cretaceous in Mongolia. It is one of the smallest and most debated Protoceratopsids ever discovered. The genus is based mainly on a tiny skull discovered in the Jadokta Formation. Large eye sockets and juvenile-like proportions caused many paleontologists to suggest it may actually represent a young Bagaceratops rather than a separate genus. If valid, Gobiceratops was likely a very small herbivore adapted to dry desert habitats filled with dunes and sparse vegetation. Lamaceratops. Lamaceratops lived between 75 and 71 million years ago during the Late Cretaceous in Mongolia. It is another debated Protoceratopsid often considered closely related to Bagaceratops. Known mainly from skull material, Lamaceratops possessed a relatively narrow face and elongated frill compared to similar Protoceratopsids. It likely measured around 1.5 meters long and fed on low vegetation in desert floodplains. Some paleontologists accept it as valid, while others believe the fossils simply represent variation within Bagaceratops itself. Magnirostris. Magnirostris lived between 75 and 71 million years ago during the Late Cretaceous in China. Its name means large beak, referring to its unusually deep and powerful jaws. The animal measured roughly 2 meters long and likely possessed one of the strongest beaks among Protoceratopsids, allowing it to process tougher vegetation. Some researchers consider it a distinct genus adapted for specialized feeding, while others believe it may simply represent an adult Bagaceratops. Its fossils were discovered in semi-arid environments filled with dry floodplains and sparse vegetation. Platyceratops. Platyceratops lived between 75 and 72 million years ago during the Late Cretaceous in Mongolia. It is mainly known from flattened skull fossils, which inspired its name meaning flat-horned face. The dinosaur was relatively small, probably around 1.5 meters long, with a compact herbivorous body. Some paleontologists consider it a valid Protoceratopsid, while others believe the unusual skull shape may result from fossil distortion or represent another Bagaceratops synonym. Like related Protoceratopsids, it likely inhabited dry desert environments and fed on low-growing vegetation. Protoceratops. Protoceratops lived between 75 and 71 million years ago during the Late Cretaceous in Mongolia and China. It is the most famous and best understood Protoceratopsid ever discovered. The dinosaur measured around 1.8 to 2 meters long and weighed up to 150 kilograms. It possessed a strong beak, muscular body, and large neck frill used for display and species recognition. Unlike later ceratopsians such as Triceratops, it lacked large horns. Protoceratops lived in harsh desert environments with dunes, seasonal storms, and sparse vegetation. One of the most famous fossils ever discovered preserved a Protoceratops locked in combat with Velociraptor after both animals were buried during a sandstorm. Large nesting colonies and juvenile fossils suggest Protoceratops may have lived socially and cared for its young. Because of its exceptional fossil record, it became one of the most scientifically important early horned dinosaurs ever discovered. Several dinosaurs were historically linked to Protoceratopsids before later studies reclassified them elsewhere or questioned their identities entirely. These include Asiaceratops from Uzbekistan, Udanoceratops from Mongolia, and the North American genera Montanoceratops and Leptoceratops, now placed within Leptoceratopsidae. Another controversial example is Serendipitoceratops from Australia, once suggested to be a Protoceratopsid but now often considered a possible ankylosaur-related dinosaur instead. If you watched the full video and enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe for more dinosaur content and prehistoric documentaries. New episodes covering every dinosaur family, species, and ancient ecosystem are coming soon. Thanks for watching DinoDocs.